First thing I'm doing today in this video is putting some fresh batteries in my battery box here. And that's going to power up my holiday trolley so I can have that ripping around the winter village. I actually use the IKEA rechargeable batteries. This is their recharger here. There's their batteries. This is also compatible with the Amazon basic batteries. I also have one of those chargers because I go through a ton of AAA batteries in this Lego room. It's actually crazy. So here we go. Now the trolley is making its way around the track and making its way underneath the ski slope. That makes me pretty happy. Now I think it's time to continue working on this project. So right now my eyes turn to this set right there in the center. That is Ninjago City Markets, and it has a working gondola. I don't think I'm gonna build the entire gondola today, but I sort of need to know where it's going to go and how it's going to be fitted on this ski slope. So before I get too far ahead of myself with finishing this and adding details, I need to start roughing in my gondola. So I created this massive beam, which is 154 studs long, black brick, black tile, and black plate. And it spans all the way over there. And I just put it on these uprights here, the dark gray uprights. I had 4 of them, so that was handy. And I just did that by running a bar through them. I put a Technic piece in there, like a little pin, and then I ran the bar through, and there is a clip on the bottom of that 3x3 triangular plate. So it clips in just like that there, and the cool thing about that is that this can pivot. So I'm going to be able to work with the angle of the ski slope. Now these uprights here, they might change, or they might be buried within the structure, because there's going to be a gondola structure on the bottom and the top where you can load and unload passengers. And I guess these pieces aren't too bad if they're going to be buried inside that structure, and they act as big, solid supports. Going into this project, I knew that the lift or gondola was going to be the most difficult part, just because this gondola has to span such a far distance. It starts way down there and goes way on top of the ski hill, right? So this beam becomes very long, and there's not really a way for me to reinforce the beam like physically. Like I can't really add Technic pieces to it because that won't really change much. I can't add more plate or more tile to the top because once again, that's not going to change much either. And I can't really increase the size or thickness of the beam. Now the issue is the gondola from that set pretty much sits right on that beam. So I know the gondola is going to sit right on the beam, and this beam is so long. So it's for sure going to sag in the middle, especially when you add the weight of the gondola. So the issue is, if I want to add another support like this in the center of the beam, that would for sure solve the problem. But how is the gondola going to pass through the beam? Now in real life, a gondola has the support structure in the center, the wheels on either side, and the gondolas go up one side and down the other side. So they're passing on either side of the support structure, which is actually in between the upward moving gondola and the downward moving gondola. The problem is with this is there's only one line, so that support structure is going to interfere with the flow of the gondola. So what I could do is pretty much replicate what I've done here and have an upward moving gondola and a downward moving gondola, so that would make 2 gondolas. But then this thing is going to become pretty big, and I don't want that to be the main focus of the ski hill. So I definitely have sort of a problem on my hands here. The next thing I'm going to do is actually create the gondola with the parts from my inventory. I know I'm not going to be able to replicate that one there, and I want to modify it anyway because that one's open. This is a winter scene, so I want it to be enclosed with windows. And I'm also going to try and add a little detail that is commonly found on ski hill gondolas. The most difficult part of creating this was finding all of the parts in my inventory. I decided to go with orange because orange is pretty bright, pretty vibrant, looks pretty cool. Mine looks like a creamsicle, like the ice cream. But yeah, I went with orange because that's the parts I had. Did I really want to go with orange? Not really, but I think it actually looks pretty good. I was actually constructing this while I was on baby watch. I wanted to build it in red, but I didn't have the pieces to do that. Check it out. Isn't it pretty cool? It's not as rounded as the Ninjago one, but it does have added windows, which can be opened. Also, the door right here, I put a bar on it, so you can open that up, and then there's this little latch that comes down there. So guests or skiers or snowboarders can make their way onto the gondola. I modified the top here because I needed it to pivot, because I know that my gondola rail or beam or whatever you want to call it is going to be a lot steeper than the one found in Ninjago City Market. So I need mine to be able to pivot. And then I added a little detail on the side here. You see that little slot right behind those 1x6 orange tiles? It's a place to put your skis or your snowboard. I did that on either side, and I think it's a nice added detail. Now, once again, I did build this with the parts from my inventory, so it is a little bit more blocky than the one found in Ninjago City Markets. That one is a beautiful design. Maybe I'll have to order some pieces to replicate that. So I already know that there's going to be two problems. First off, once again, my beam is going to sag when I add this gondola. There is no question about it. It is going to be too heavy. I need to support the center somehow. Also, I'm going to have to raise my supports on either side, probably by another one of these, which are 1x6x5. So in addition to these, my supports on either side are going to be an additional, looks like 12 bricks, but I don't know, I'll play around with that math just to make sure it's optimal. Because when I add this thing here, it's going to bump into the hill guaranteed, and there is going to be a bunch of sagging on the beam. Yeah, see? So yeah, I really don't think that minifigures are really wanting to go on this gondola, because they'd be like, oh no, there's a big droop. Bonk, bonk. You know what? The sag actually doesn't really bother me from an aesthetic point of view, because that's actually realistic. When you have a look at gondolas, between the support structures or even chairlifts, there is a huge dip. Like, that's just the way it is. But I know it will bother the Lego. For example, when I actually hook up the string and there's a crank or whatever I do to bring the gondola from the top to the bottom, that sag can't be there because it's just going to add too much resistance to that crank and it won't work properly. But the sag is definitely real. For example, I've had the opportunity of snowboarding at Whistler Blackcomb, which is like one of the best snowboard mountains or whatever, one of the best mountain resorts in the entire world, I would probably say. And there is a peak-to-peak gondola. So there's the Whistler Mountain, there's the Blackcomb Mountain, and there's a gondola that's at the very top and it goes from peak to peak. And it is freely suspended, and this thing is nuts. I think there was like 20 people in each gondola, maybe 12, can't quite remember. But this thing was like sagging like this between the mountains. Like, it was actually crazy. It was an experience to be on. I will never go back there, I don't think, at this point. I went there a number of years ago and it was reasonable to go there, but this year their updated lift ticket prices are $400 a day. At least I read an article on that. Isn't that insane? I want to go back, but $400 a day. I went there one day and I barely saw any of the mountains or any of the mountains. It's just that big. Okay, back to the Lego. So I've spent quite some time just playing around with the gondola, moving its position, raising the supports, lowering the supports, increasing the length of the beam, decreasing the length of the beam, changing pretty much everything. And I now realize that this is going to be a lot more difficult than I originally anticipated. And I also realized that the first thing I should have done when it came to building a ski hill is build the lift or the gondola. Do not build the ski hill and then build the lift. Build the lift first, because that would eliminate all of these variables that I'm working with right now. And this is going to be challenging because pretty much I think everything that I've done so far is going to have to change, in my opinion. Although this is my first time ever building a ski lift or a gondola, so my opinion might not be that good, but I'll show you what's going on. So I actually moved the gondola over so it's more like in the center-ish of the mountain. It used to be on that little platform there, and I decided to move it this way. I also shortened the beam because it just wasn't working. I also changed the height of the supports because that wasn't working either. I got rid of some parts of the mountain here, and I've placed some more IKEA boxes to try and rough in where the lift is going to go. So the issue is This thing is so tall. So the issue is when this goes up, it's got to be able to clear these runs. I don't want this skier here to get bonked in the head by the gondola or bonk his head into the gondola, right? Like, that's not good. It has to be realistic. So in order to fix that, I've got to raise up the supports. But then when you raise up the supports, you're raising the whole gondola. When it comes up here, it's like, wow, that is super tall. How am I going to get skiers get down off the gondola, right? And then if I were to raise the supports down there, it comes down there and it's like, well, how am I going to get skiers like way down here? It was so high up. How was I going to get the skiers and snowboarders to the actual lift and make it look realistic? So trying to mess around with the height to provide clearance for that is messing with the top and the bottom. And that's why I should have built the gondola first and then built the ski hill around it. Yeah, because that is a huge issue. This could work if I had the ski hill and at like this height, and then I had the boarding of the gondola right there, and then they can take it up to here. But now when they get up here, it's way up top. So now I've got to build like a steep right off the gondola. It doesn't really make sense. So yeah, it's just like one problem after another. I'm glad that I didn't do what I was originally anticipating on doing today and finish off the base construction for the mountain. And then after that, I was going to try and build a gondola, but it's like, wow, like in order to get this to work, it's ridiculous. I can sort of visualize how I want to do it and what I want it to look like, but it is proving to be very difficult. Now, a standard gondola in real life would not be a straight line, right? So what I could do is have the beam or whatever, like start flat and then go vertical, and there's different points, like it's different angles and stuff, right? So near the top, it could flatten out technically, but then I've got to put like kinks in this beam, and I'm not going to be able to crank the gondola because I don't know how to do a powered up system where the gondola would actually move and go through these different kinks. So at this point, it's just a huge amount of trial and error, and I am absolutely stumped. That's an issue. I've got to try and figure it out. I've definitely got to continue brainstorming, even though I've been doing that for the majority of my day. But with the shorter span, the beam actually is not bowing as much. Whew, that's fast. But I definitely could make something like this work because I'm on the verge of having the right amount of clearance for right there. It just needs to go up a little bit. And then what I could do is just change the entire bottom of the ski hill. So just have this sort of be like the end of the ski hill and raise it up to that height there, and have this sort of all just slowly slope toward the gondola entrance down there. And then like the main chalet could be down here, and this could be like some sort of whatever town area. You know, there could be like restaurants and stuff like that on the base of the ski hill, and then maybe some steps up to the gondola, and then you can actually enjoy your skiing. And then when it comes up here and it's that tall, it has to be that tall for the clearance. Once again, I would just have to change the slope here. So like redo this and make this slope go up at a like harsher angle, right? Whoop, go right up there, and then I could try and make that work. And then there could be another run coming down this way. So I think I'm off to something good here. I just have to change the elevation of the bottom part of the hill and then pretty much redo all this as well. So like, yeah, that sort of sucks. I should have made this first and then started building my ski hill around it, because now I have to change everything just to accommodate that. So recently I was at the Lego house and they had like this incredible mountain. It's right here. This is the YouTube video that I made. It's called The Best Lego City in the World. If you haven't checked it out, I would recommend checking it out. But they have this working gondola, and this is another thing that I could do for my ski hill. They have the base of the gondola and it's actually in a structure, so that'd be a way that I could manage the height. Because in order for the gondola to clear, the actual skiers have to make the base of it and the top of it really tall. But what I could actually do is build a structure like this, so they actually have like a building that houses it, and then I could sort of blend it in that way. Maybe I need to take some inspiration from this incredible Lego city that was in the Lego house. Once again, if you haven't checked out this video, you've got to check it out. Like, look at that mountain, look at that ski hill. It looks amazing. Definitely something to aspire to. The amount of slopes they use, though, oh my gosh, that is just legendary. Holy cow. Oh man, I need to think on it and I need to read a bunch of comments. You make sure you let me know what you think by commenting below. Please remember to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more great stuff. Farewell.